Hey everyone, welcome to Chasing Art. So last week after I put out my video, Steve from the Mind of Watercolor, which by the way is a great channel, you should definitely check that out if you haven't. He put out a video about the importance of practice and fundamentals. And I kind of felt like he was talking to me about this because I was having a bit of a time with the sky in that project. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to practice a bit, see if we can't make our skies look a little bit better. So stick around, see what we can do. So as I mentioned before, I started out as an acrylic painter, then shifted over into watercolor. Watercolor takes a different approach than what acrylics do. And this is where sometimes I'll end up falling back into the habits of acrylic painting when really I need to pay more attention to how watercolors work. So let me get this set up. We'll practice a bit. And we'll see if we can apply it to like an original drawing or something. All right, hopping right into this. What I've got is just a sheet of B watercolor paper, and I'm using M. Graham ultramarine blue watercolor. Now the first swatch that I did was just straight wet on dry. Now I am working on wet on wet. And I think that's where I could have improved last week if I would have went wet on wet instead of wet on dry like I did in the sky. If I would have went wet on wet, I believe that it would have been a lot smoother. The gradients would have been a lot better. I'm not sure how much it would have changed the picture. I just know that I myself would have been happier with it. And I'm sure anybody out there that's spent any time painting, drawing, we all tend to be our own worst critics. And my intentions with this video are not to constantly just dog on myself and how last week's turned out. I still like last week's. I think it turned out pretty good. But I do think there is room for improvement, and this is just me looking at my work with a critical eye and trying to figure out where I can do better, which I think is something that we all do at one point or another, if not constantly. But getting back to the task at hand here, you see I'm still working on my gradients, and at this point I still have the number 4, and it's not doing terrible. These are pretty small little swatches I'm doing, but wet on wet's definitely the way to go. But my next biggest improvement comes right here when I switch to a number 10. And my best guess for that making such a big improvement would be that the larger brush carries a lot more pigment and water, so it's a lot easier to disperse evenly. I'm definitely getting a much better distribution of the pigment using the larger brush, even in these small little swatches. I guess with that realization, my best advice to myself would be to use the biggest brush I can handle for the area that I'm trying to cover. No, don't worry, I'm not going to make you sit through all of my practice. That shit gets boring. So, just let it be known that I did a lot of these. Now let's move along. Leading up to this week's video, I decided, I'm probably going to do a tree. That way we can throw a sky in the background, just something simple, So I drew up a bunch of different trees, and this is what I came up with. This is the one I like the most. I like the style of this tree, but I like the shading in this one and this one better. So I'm going to see if we can't combine the style of those 3 trees. Now, after about 6,000 more thumbnails, this is the one I ended up deciding on. It's not the style that I wanted to go with, but for some reason I just could not get that other one scaled up to where I liked it. So this is the one I landed on. Right now I'm just drawing it out closer to the size that I intend to paint it in. It's just a simple drawing. It's nothing to write home about, but I really wanted to see how the gradients were coming out now that I've practiced a bit more. So there's my drawing. All right, I was happy with that, so let's get it transferred into my sketchbook. What I'm putting this in is my Arches travel journal. It's a 6x10. It's just a small travel journal. Funny enough, this is the first drawing / painting that I'll have in this. All right, we're finally moving on to the inking. There's a funny little factoid here. I can't remember which video it was. It was my first or second video. I mentioned if you're going to do watercolor, to make sure that you have waterproof ink. Well, you know, the other day I went to fill this up because I noticed it was getting low, and when I opened it up, I was surprised to find that the original manufacturer's ink cartridge was still in it. I put a refillable in it. I filled it up with noodlers, but I guess that maybe the ink hadn't worked its way through yet, because this is not waterproof, and I don't find out until right before I start painting this. And at that point I was just trying to decide, okay, now do I try redrawing this, or do I use this as experiment time? I decided to go with experiment time because honestly this has kind of been something that I've wanted to try for a while anyway, and I'm so far into it, I was like, well, let's see what happens. So I knew that it wasn't waterproof. As you see, all I'm adding right now is water. All that shading is just coming from the ink. And you come back and I start throwing some paint in, and everything starts coming together, and I'm actually very happy that I decided to continue with this one. And I'm hoping that once it's done, you'll agree that it was the right call. I think what this is one of those happy accidents that the man himself used to talk about. I sat here looking at it for a few minutes, and I don't know, that sky just looked kind of lonely, so I thought I'd give him some friends. So I threw in some friendly birds off in the distance. So what did we learn today? Let's count the things. It was a pretty productive day, honestly. We got better with our washes. We got better with our gradients. Both of those practices I think I'm going to put into, maybe not daily practice, but definitely I'm going to be practicing those before I go into a painting. That really helped a lot. And we also did learn one other thing. We also learned that mistakes sometimes really do lead to happy accidents. So there was that. Yeah. But anyway, this video today wasn't really about, creating a masterpiece. It was more of, let's practice something and then see how we can apply it. And I think we were successful in that. Like I say, the artwork was nothing to write home about. It was what it was. But the sky looked better. I had better washes. I had better gradients. That being said, if you like what you've seen today, please like and subscribe. And until next week, you take care.